Welcome back to another podcast, Healing Through Yarning. Corey here. Got another brother in to tell a bit of their story and a bit of their history of where they got to now. I'll throw over to the brother.
Corey, wow. So glad to be with you, brother. Firstly, commend you for doing the podcast. Healing, yeah. The journey of life. Love it. Something we should have been speaking about a long time ago. I suppose it's time to get talking about it now. So, let's go.
No worries, bro. So, just for the people at home, let them know where you're from and where you grew up.
Well, my name's Nathan Moran. I'm the youngest boy of 5 children to Wilma Moran Holton. For those who have known me will always know I carried the stigma of my Irish father is O'Hurley, better known as Hurleys in Australia, who arrived at Roselle, Balmain people. My mother met him in coming to Sydney. My mob are from Kempsey. Mum's born and raised at Burnt Bridge, Kempsey. We are Thungutties, we are Birrapais. Acknowledge my family lines are not just Moran or Moran, the last name. My grandfather's a Holton. My nan's father was a Signs. I'm related to the Richies, Dungays, Holtons, Morrises. Yes, the last name Morans and Holtons might be my grandparents, but that's my bloodlines for the Thungutty and Birrapai. And as I said, through my father, I've got Irish connections to Limerick, not just Roselle and Balmain.
Oh, nice. So yeah, I guess a little bit about a podcast. We talk, about you and where you're from and where you grew up. So yeah, growing up in Balmain and Glebe, how was that for you growing up as a young black fella coming down from Kempsey?
Yeah, so I did the yo-yo life, I call it. My mum put me through 11 schools, nearly a kinder 1 per year. That was mum's movement of life.
Yep.
Mum's part of the first Aboriginals who worked in government in the 1970s.
Yep.
In fact, I was born when Mum took up the first jobs for Aboriginal people in a place called Social Security. Today they call it Centrelink.
Yep.
The first 4 jobs were in Blackstown in 1974. My mum moved down and I was born in that year. And I suppose that's where my journey started, at Blackstown in 1974.
Yeah.
I started my primary school at Port Macquarie, so I'm a kindergarten student at Port Macquarie, or Eastport as we know it at home, up on the beach, living with Nan. So I was pretty quickly back with Nan. Over time, but I attended schools that stretched from Mount Druitt, Linwood Park, which is in and around Layla Park areas, in and around Blackstown. Went to Roselle Primary, went up to the Central Coast and attended schools such as Wamberal and Terrigal, and went back to Port Macquarie and then came back to Terrigal in high school. In between that, I was in Cairns for 10 months straight. I spent 10 months at Smithfield High in Cairns, where I went and lived with my Irish family for a little while when I was in year 7 and year 8.
Yep. Nice.
Like a yo-yo, up and down and everywhere.
Yeah.
Thanks to Mum, chasing work. Got to attend many schools and I suppose lived across many different areas.
Yeah. And I guess for you, it probably would have been hard to actually call somewhere home.
Yes, cool. For me, I just acknowledge, firstly, my background with Mum. Mum's a Cootamundra girl.
Yep.
So while we're definitely, know who we are, where we're from, my mother at 4 years of age was taken from her mother who was visiting Redfern at Botany Road, visiting her sister to visit her mother, visit my great-grandmother. And my nan, bringing her children with her without permission, ran the risk and the children were removed and put into Cootamundra girls, or the girls.
Yeah.
My mum being the youngest, started her journey at 4 in Cootamundra Girls' Home. So Mum has a proud story of saying, went through hell in the home.
Yeah.
But Mum broke out. Mum's one of the rarest things on earth. That is, my mum escaped Cootamundra at 8 turning 9.
Wow.
On the 3rd attempt to escape with 2 other Aboriginal girls. One, touch wood, she passed away with Mum now, it's gone, was only Evelyn Black from Lake Cajelico, broke out of Cootamundra Girls and made it all the way back to Sydney.
Wow.
My mum eventually made it back home. She made it back to her grandparents up on the north coast. So through that, I suppose my journey's been a bit similar to Mum's in that you didn't stay anywhere too long.
Yeah.
But Mum was chasing work. if we'd stayed at Kempsey, Port Macquarie, work as barmaids, work as pickers, bean pickers, casual labour was not going to get her ahead.
Yep.
In some ways thankful, but yeah, it was a challenge saying, did you have one home? I didn't live anywhere for more than 12 months until I was in year 11, when Mum had settled in Alexandria by that time, and she stayed until I started uni. She spent 3 straight years in one house, was the longest time we'd had.
Yeah, it's thanks for sharing the story about your mum, and so many stories of what gone through those institutions or gone into foster families and not told enough of what that actually was and how it was for her. But yeah, so moving around a lot, so how'd you find it with, I guess, friends or?
Friends, it's hard. I must say now, when I look back, I'm reached the half century and still standing. Didn't raise the bat, but I'm still standing. To look back and know that, I've got some friends from, back from Eastport Primary School, from kindergarten. I mean, some of that is because that's where we're from, where we go back to. It's about returning like a boomerang home constantly. But then in the life's journey, I really haven't really kept people from those movements, be it here in the outer suburbs of Sydney or Rozelle, up to Cairns and back. No, never had a time to really form beyond 12 months with anyone, to form longer relationships. But then it's funny, through life you meet people. I probably become closer friends with people I've made sporting teams with, have stayed as friends through life. One particular fella, I think we met when we were 16 playing rugby, still mates today. We ended up attending uni together and getting a scholarship together. But from childhood, my family's probably my closest friends. Family, friends of family who've maintained connections, but I haven't really met people independently because I didn't have that much time to stay over years to get to know them well. With moving to and fro.
And going back to the moving, it's quite a normal trait for what they've been stolen or been around their families are being stolen, to have that, we can't stay in one place for too long. They'll come, they'll find, they'll take my kids. So it's a constant fear that our parents live in, and it's something as young people we don't understand.
Corey, I had no idea living directly with my mum, and just to say, I was very lucky. I lived with mum from 0 to 10. A lot of people don't get that. My father stole us from Rozelle when I was in year 4, Rozelle Primary School. We went to dinner and I never come back to mum. So I spent the next 4 years with someone who I really didn't know. Yes, it's my dad, but I didn't know him from a bar of soap, didn't know his girlfriend or his new family. But for 4 years, being away from mum, never realised what mum had been through. And it was only when I got back as a freaking 14-year-old that things started opening up, who mum was. Who all these females who were not direct family, some were family, but I realised as a 14-year-old that some of mum's friends were closer to her than family. And the questions started asking her, and of course 14, that's 1988. You got a riot, you got yarns about colonialism, and my mum starts to open up about being part of what's known as the Cootamundra Girls. Mum didn't call it the Stolen Gens. Mum never used that language. Mum always said she was part of the Coota Girls. And at the start I thought it was a trendy sort of social club. And I'd say, when you're 14 and you see these ladies go out and they have fun together and they care for each other, I just thought she was part of some sort of black women's social club. And it wasn't until my nan's sister broke it to me probably, a year or two later, certainly 1991 with the Royal Commission for Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. Yarns started coming out around the Stolen Gens. Famously, Nan's sister worked at the AMS at Redfern, pulled me aside to tell me that there'll be stories told and there'll be things to come up about this Cootamundra Girls. And Aunt basically that day outed that she was a Coota girl, which I realised, wait a minute, you're Nan's sister. How's that possible? You're my mum's auntie. To realise, it's a much bigger group. So my start to learn about Kuta girls and the real realities of horror of my mum had been through and endured, and then all the uncles at Kinchela and the Bomaderry kids and others who were privately put out institutions was alien to me.
Yeah.
She'd cocooned me. But it'd been there, and then 88 started bringing it out. Certainly by 1991 with the Royal Commission, it started coming out. And then I was proud to be at the Stolen Gens Inquiry, George Street, Redfern, with me nan's sister again, and I'll acknowledge Auntie Sharif, as she's known by married name, Ward, married maiden name, or Moran. Auntie Nada was the front desk or counter at the AMS through the 70s, 80s into the 90s. Dragged me down to George Street for the release of the Stolen Generations Inquiry report.
Yeah.
And that's when it became open. This is what it is. That me mum and all the females in my family were part of this greater group known as the Cootamundra Girls. Acknowledged my nan was actually before Kuta was a house slave at 11. All of her older siblings were house slaves before Kuta got set up. And then every one of her children and siblings would go through this horrible institution known as Cootamundra came about. So I'm thankful to Mum, she cocooned me. In some ways it was inevitable or unavoidable by my father coming and kidnapped me from Roselle Primary School. That after I come home after 4 years, questions come up, the timing, the bicentennial, Royal Commissions, and it all started coming out, Corey. I started to find out more about my mum's friends, this social club, this group were embedded with each other because of the trauma of upbringing, being put together as children to be trained up to become slaves. It was a pretty stark wake-up call. Probably didn't help when I was 14, 15 with the relationships with the greater world and the non-Aboriginal society, and acknowledge those who knew me at the time probably rightly or unrightly thought I was anti-them. Discovering what the society had done to me mum, what it had done to me grandparents, the discovery of institutionalism, but I acknowledge my grandfather was a war serviceman. I found out in 1989 when a Veteran Affairs card came home that Pop had been at war, but then to realise why we didn't have no farm, why we didn't have no wealth, why he didn't have no pension, was on the basis that he was an Aboriginal serviceman in 1940, wasn't entitled to these things. So as a teenager, things come into you rapidly between about 1989 and 1991. As a 14, 15 and 16 year old, probably didn't help me dealing with non-Aboriginal people at the time. But I look back and say, look, I got to know more about who I was, the trauma of my family, of directly my mum's parents and their grandparents, my mum's great-grandparents, to get a better insight into who I am. So although it was hard and probably a few teeth marks on knuckles today, a few altercations, a few disagreements, that's part of the upbringing, I suppose. I went through the trauma I inherited and started to learn about.
And that's exactly it. And there's all that various of different traumas that would live through you through intergenerational trauma that in 91 till really present day, we're still not finding out the actual.
I've got to say, Cor, it's a journey we don't finish. We all have personal trauma, but then we have this inherent trauma. And I suppose I was lucky to get an insight into inherent trauma because of Royal Commissions, because of the Stolen Gens Inquiry. Forced conversations that before that were just squashed. No one spoke. But then the journey as myself, I'd say at 14, coming home to mum. At that time, hitting the streets at 14 and 15 and living independently really by 17. Gives you traumas that you don't realise. Just surviving, just trying to get through the day. But I'd say I was very thankful for the inspiration of a mother, my grandparents who were doers and goers, who didn't stop, went out and tried things like serving the country in war when the Japanese were invading. The fact that my nan taught herself to read and write, got my mum to learn to read and write as an adult as well. My mum went to bachelor college as an adult to become an adult learner while I was in kindergarten. I think all helped me to inspire me to say, no matter what happens, you can overcome. But yeah, how to manage it, that's still something I'm still learning today.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful, but I want to say I've got a network of friends as much as family today. It's more friends who work in this area. Life friends I'm so proud of that have been able to do this. I know you've interviewed some, and I think you've got to interview some more, but Uncle Ivan, for instance, Clark, meeting Uncle Ivan decades ago, independently in the streets, meeting him socially. What an inspiration.
Yeah.
Meet Uncle Ivan, slowly learn about his story.
Yep.
The interconnections with institutionalism, but as he learned pretty quick about who my family was and my family's role, and my mum being a part of setting up Cootamundra Girls and speaking up for stolen gens and eventually speaking up nationally at conferences. So from those little things grow, and then with Mr. Raymond Weatherall, one of his key allies and key mate of mine, to see them get into this reality we must address who we are, the hurt, the pain and the trauma we carry, if we're to be any good. It's been immensely proud.
Yeah.
But I'd say, Corey, I was so lucky. In 1998, found myself working at home and was selected to be part of the first Indigenous Peoples Diplomacy Training Program, where they selected 2, no more than 3 from each state, were put together to go through what's called the Indigenous Leadership Program today. I was selected from Biripi Land Council in Port Macquarie as a 21-year-old to go to this international youth diplomacy training for Indigenous people. And at that course, and I acknowledge extended family friend from primary school at Eastport High, Stephen Oxley, who's a Pawson in the foster community.
Yep.
Me and Steve got put together again. First time since primary school, since kindergarten. We were in a room at 21. Wow. He was at Foster Land Council, I was at Biripi. We were trained by Jose Autoroma. One of the key things they did is they brought in Aboriginal healers and Aboriginal educators. So Mrs. Sullivan, forever thankful that I got to meet her from Burke, who introduced to us the first time we'd ever heard the notion of dealing with trauma, dealing with pain that you carry. At 21, that was totally foreign to me to talk to anyone to talk about hurt and pain and what you're inheriting from your parents. So I'm so thankful to be part of that. And then within 5 more years later, I was part of the first Commonwealth government's rollout of the very Aboriginal Indigenous Leadership Program.
Yep.
And we had Mrs. Coomberry, an Aboriginal healer from South Australia, come over.
Wow.
And I'd say, quite frankly, if I didn't have those 2 people to meet independently of my own family experience and personal experience, I don't think I would have been able to even address some of the core problems in my life. Belonging, connectedness, trauma, things that you never want to deal with, just started becoming conversations.
Yep.
So forever thankful to Mrs. Sullivan, Mrs. Cornbury, from Burke and South Australia, for Nunangiri mob and the Walkamara mob to come in and start breaking my shell, hard egg shell, to tell me you got to be honest, forthright, but at the same time deal with who you are.
Yeah.
If you're ever going to be any good. So yeah, I'm thankful, but I acknowledge today the work that Raymond's doing, the work that Uncle Ivan's doing, the Healing Foundation, the Stolen Gens Orgs, Cootamundra, Kinchela, Bomaderry, the social workers in AMSs, those who are out like yourself. It's about time we started doing this. It's been too long.
Yeah, I guess, on that, for me, it's building this platform is to show society that black men do talk, black men are safe, black men have trauma, and we've never really been allowed to have that or say that, because we think we have to buy into a Western view of what how white men deal with trauma for us was always about coming together and dealing with it together. So to put this platform out there and really have a conversation with men like yourself from across many nations, now what we call Australia. And for me, there's no end to this. As if brothers want to keep talking to me, I'm happy to keep going out and having yarns.
You have to, brother.
Yeah.
The matter I don't speak about, and I would like to speak about, and I need to speak about, losing friends young. Greatest trauma I carried in life was my best mate. He was in a car accident with me cousin, with his brother. So I lost my best mate's brother and my cousin. Stolen car from the block. Vividly remember coming home from training, and right or wrong, I was playing for Rovers. Yes, I get a boo from the All Blacks for saying, yes, I was playing for Rovers.
For me, bro, it's right.
But those who know the background know that All Blacks didn't have a team that year. So Chrissy Dunn's, great star of the community in rugby league, and I were playing with Rovers. We went down to training. When we got home, a cousin of ours had just got out in juvie, hooked up with some of our best mates, and I want to pass my love forever to the Whitten family. Forever miss you, Wayne. Thomas, suicided last year. But Wally with me cousin Keith, Bleeder, Donovan, Jared, lost their lives in a stolen car in 1996. They left the block, 95, it was a year before. Left the block in a stolen car after we finished training. We told them, get out of that car at the top of the block. Get out of that car. There's better ways to get home. But the boys stubbornly left. And then the next news report was 6 in the morning. And I'll never forget that Raymond Dungay, Bellana's buddy, and me were watching TV at 23 Lewis Street. Of course, we're coasties. We get up at 4:30 before the fouls. Uncle Pedro would rise and we'd get up with him. And we'd watch the news. He'd have a cup of tea. And the first news report was a stolen car had an accident on the Pacific Highway. They flashed to the TV to show the footage of the camera, and it showed the very Hyundai that left the block with 4 people in it. And I want to acknowledge Thomas Whitten, who passed away just last year. When we woke up, Thomas was with us. He got out of the car. He jumped out of it. Thank God he did at that time. Thomas got out and he left 3 in the car. Again, that was my cousin, Keefe, Bleeder Donovan, Jared, Wally Whitten, and my best mate was Wayne Whitten. Unfortunately, Wally and Keefe died of an impact. Wayne was thrown out of the car, survived miraculously an accident where the police ran them off the road. The TV show ended with me and Bud going, oh no, and we ran to the ALS, which in them days was on Cleveland Street, to pound on the doors to wait for someone to open. And beautiful men by the name of Philip Hall and a man who's passed away now called Cecil Jarrett. Cecil Patton was there and realised that me and Bud were pretty upset. And we said to them, our mates and our cousins are dead in a car. And that was the hardest thing. We had to take the ride home, put Keith to rest, take Wally home. But the trauma it caused was Wayne ended up trying to take his life unsuccessfully, and then successfully took his life. And that was the first direct suicide of a friend, a relo I'd had. Wayne still remains the memory of my best mate, an Aboriginal, should have been a rock star, movie star. And those in Toomala know him, he was signed by the Roosters to come here and play rugby league. He had TV and acting gigs, and he was just a freaky dude. Thomas, sadly, his brother, who survived, in 224, walked out in front of a train at McDonald Town. That's a trauma we still live. I hope the young generation learn from our mistakes. Stay clear of stolen cars. No fun in stolen cars. I lost a good mate in Kempsey. Sharky Smith, Chris, to a stolen car into a telegraph pole as a kid. It ruined our lives. And then I lost one of my best mates in a stolen car from Redfern. They don't do any good.
No.
For 5 seconds of adrenaline, you end up with danger. A good mate of mine, Richard Bell, nearly lost his life when I was DJing with the cricketers, and they crashed into a wall while I was DJing.
Yeah.
Every example of stolen cars for me someone ends up injured, maimed or dead. Yes, there's the odd one person who survives, but they live with the trauma.
Yeah.
And I just hope that the next generation can learn that there's other ways we can deal with our pain. We can seek thrills, seek speed and adrenaline through other ways.
Yeah.
And these days, I want to tell you, I'd rather shout kids on a racetrack at Eastern Creek than go in and try and steal a car to find out how fast it goes or how far your adrenaline can go.
Exactly right.
Or whether that's jump out of a fucking plane.
Yep.
To see how it feels. Than to do what we've done in my generation as the kids of the 70s. Of course, as the 90s, as we grew into these 20-year-olds who were supposed to be bulletproof, my mates and friends are all dying. And yeah, I miss them still today. Tough life without your best mates.
Yeah, it is. And thanks for sharing that story, Nathan. It's, you know, there's so many stories out there of brothers and sisters have been lost through, some of those actions of trying to just look for a quick thrill or think we're doing something fun and actually putting our lives at risk and in danger. And then also on suicide, you know, as First Nations men from this country.
And that's the legacy I want to hope to deal with. It. I've got a young generation now where suicide's become the norm. And I want to say, as a father and a grandfather, I really hope we can fix this.
Yeah.
Because when my grandparents arrived, suicide was not known.
Yeah.
In my mum's age of the institutionalism that crept in and the hurt that it caused, it started. But I hope that we can somehow address the fact that our lives are more valuable than being gone. I don't want to see kids and grandkids who grow up not knowing who their parents, family members or loved ones were.
Yeah.
And now as a young fella who's, geez, I've nearly lost the amount of fingers on my hands of young people who I've coached or been a part of who have taken their lives recently, is an immense pain. But I hope that people can realise we need people like you, Cor, the people we mentioned, the healing foundations. Those people are out there helping people. We need them to be supported so we can overcome this time of, yeah, we're poor, yeah, we're the most impoverished, yes, we've probably got the hardest lives of all, but our life's still worth living. And I hope one day we can turn around life and give ourselves resources, incomes, so we can keep up with Joe and Sue Smith or whatever gubs there are out there, that we're equal. We have the same resources, and then we can get on with it. But till then, I just hope we can help kids to realise, and older adults, that our lives are worth something, we're of value, and we've got people that love us.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Part of this podcast is to show those young men they are valued. We do have all these traumas and stuff like that, but there's places they can go to. And there's this concept that you bottle it up or it's weak to speak. No. Get out and just tell someone you're not going. And hopefully you reach out to the right people, and the right people are there to listen.
And I'll say again, my experience was my best mate took his life, not because he was weak, because he lost his brother. Yeah. He lost his best friend, my cousin. And he didn't know how to cope. You know, and I don't know whether him doing that saved me or saved others, but I'm pretty sure it has. At the end of the day, no one should judge no one.
No.
No one knows what they're going through.
No.
And I hope people can have that respect, to realise all they need is love and support, and be there for people.
Yeah.
And I just hope we can do that, support each other, do what you're doing, Cor, keep talking about this so people can understand. Life will get hard. There'll be times of great sadness, great badness, even madness. But man, there's hope.
Yeah.
We'll get to the other side, and we'll have some goodness.
Yeah.
just don't feel that life's overwhelmingly too hard, or that life can't get better. Stick together, stay together, and reach out if you need help.
And that's it. That's the message I try to get across. And a lot of the brothers you spoke about, or uncles, and spread that same word. It's trauma affects us in all different ways, but if we're not willing to get up and address it and speak about it, that can control us. And we get into these really dark spots where we think no one will listen to us, and my story's not worth telling because it's not as big as that person's story, or it's different to that story. Everybody's story is unique, and everyone's trauma is unique, and having those conversations with each other and going back and having a band of brothers, sisters, whatever it is, just to say, bro, I'm not doing well, sis, I'm struggling a little bit with what happened there, and I'm not sure what to do here. There's no shame in saying I don't know.
That's it. And my first, suppose, insights when I look back now about our old people dealing with hurt. My pop spoke about losing his brother. His closest relative was his younger brother, who was 18 months younger than him, who was murdered on a train when they were teenagers. My pop carried that trauma through all his life. Yeah. He always spoke about his brother. He always missed his brother. And the other great trauma my pop endured was war, seeing people die. Yeah. Being part of what was known as, people know the Kokoda Trail, my pop was there. My pop fought in the first ever win by the Australian military over the Japanese to win an airport at Mill Bay. But in that journey, he lost his great uncle, Uncle Dick, Archibald, in that war. He's seen other colleagues die in war. He's seen the opposition die. My pop was only 18 when he came home at 19, with the memories that his uncle was dead, the man who inspired him to join. He lived with that loss for his life. But what I got to watch was he would catch up with, not regularly, but he would catch up with them annually as much as he could with ex-warmen, and he would catch up with his cousins of the same age to talk about his brother. Yeah. So they had that support stuff that we speak about was happening back then. Yeah. They just did it. And I hope we can get the inspiration to realise if they can cope with losing siblings as teenagers, watch their friends, family and their heroes being killed and murdered, but still somehow live their life, I hope we can learn from that. And I know when I look back at what my pop went through, I realise he lived until his 80s. He lived with all that trauma and pain. Yeah. But he set an example I hope that I can pass on to the next is nothing's that sad or bad that we need to give up.
Yeah. And I guess for you now, and being a father, being a grandfather, all this stuff has a different meaning. As we learn over time, when we have our own little ones, it's meanings change and things start to change. So for you, I guess now, young boys and young girls, what's been the big change for you that you've seen within yourself?
Well, confidence.
Yep.
I must say that this generation mightn't realise it, but they speak up a lot more and they're a lot louder and prouder than my generation. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that my generation, from my mum's generation, we were seen as loud and out there. And I think it's good to see it's building. That's on one level. But I'm very worried about self-hurt, the pain we talk about with suicide. Yeah. The pain of the reality that there's just as many kids, if not more now, are taken away, are put into homes than when I grew up, is the hard realities I hope to help the younger ones with, and that is we don't give up, but we don't give in. Yeah. And I'd say that in the terms of giving up is when you feel like it ain't going to change. Giving in is when you just submit to it. Well, just don't give up and don't give in. Yeah. Keep up the good fight, but we're human. We are equal to anyone. It's not our fault that the people who came here and stole the land and murdered our old people felt that we were not equal humans. When Eddie Mabo did a decision back a long time before the young ones know this, but it was only 1993, the Australian courts ruled we're equal. I'd say to the young generation, make them realise what equal is. Equal means we own this land. We belong to this land. We have an inheritance for this land. And we also have rights for the damage that's been done to us to be recompensed, to be honoured and be respected. And for those who say Australia hasn't got a racist history, remind them, Australia's the only place on earth that made it white only. Australia's also a place where the first people who came here were to set up a jail. And those people also had a rule where their boss said they can hang us from the trees in 1814. When they say that this isn't racist, tell them the truth. Look into their own policies, their own history. Their own facts state the truth. And the younger generation, I hope that you'll be able to realise what the old people spoke about. When they say equality, that means, yeah, we get our land back, we get our culture back, we get our language back, we get our respect back. And I hope that you or the next generation complete that journey. 7 generations in, guys. Our culture tells us 230, 40 years into the colony, it's going to turn around. If you don't know it, talk to the Americas. Talk to other colonies, be they in Africa or Europe. Things turn around. When it turns, enjoy it. Never forget the past, but also enjoy the future and create new futures. Where our culture, our identity is equal, if not at the front end, and no shame. That's a white fella word.
Exactly right.
I learned it from my parent, I learned it from my grandparents. Shame is being bred into us by colonial bodies who used to put up that we're not equal. Do all you can. I've dedicated my life to prove white people wrong. It's probably the Irish in me to prove the English wrong, but it's just as much the black fella in me to prove the Gubbars wrong of this land who stereotype us.
Yeah.
Do your best, overcome, stick together, work together. Don't do it alone. I've seen too many people who do it alone, don't get there.
Yeah.
Work together, find friends, find allies, find family who think like you, and stick together. You'll get them, guys.
Yeah. That was very beautifully said, Nathan. Just to go back to that, what your grandparents told you about shame, it's a white construct, and it's, if you go across our beautiful nations, or 250 of them, and you have those conversations around what's the language word for shame, there is none.
There ain't.
Because we weren't ashamed of who we were and what we did and what we practiced in our LORE law.
Correct.
And what we did, there was no shame in it. So for us, the way I use shame now and the many works I do, I work with a lot of survivors of child sexual assault. And I say the same conversation with them. Shame is something now perpetrators use to make you afraid to call something out. And it tries to shift the guilt. It's like, for me, sorry is an action word. Sorry is an action word, but shame is a controlling word. When we introduce shame into us, or shame thrown upon us, it makes us scared to call out what's actually happening. And it's something that through the colonization of this country and many other countries was a tactic they learned.
And I say that the only shame is the shame of the colonisers who couldn't allow us to be us.
Yeah.
Who somehow had a problem with how we spoke, how we danced, what we ate, what we sung. And yeah, hopefully our mob realise it's the same thing they did all over Earth. We ain't no different. But remember, we got nothing to be ashamed of.
No, exactly.
We are equal to anyone. Our culture stands up against anything in any space and time. And when we talk with other cultures of the world, the sad reality is a lot of them do know that we're the first culture and the continuing culture.
Yeah.
And I hope that'll inspire people to realise shame's a game, and that game's colonialism.
Yeah.
All we need to do is beat the game, be ourselves. Just be yourself. Be proud of yourself, and you're already won.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, last question, brah. It's a question asked to everyone. Is when you're gone and you're in the dream time, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, jeez.
And it's something you don't have to answer now, just something you can reflect on as well.
I'll go. I hope it's real. That is what others said about me at school. Someone put in a book called the Year 12 book where I finished my high school. A non-Aboriginal person wrote in, I quoted Malcolm X quotes to them at school.
Yeah.
But I hope that they realise all I was doing is showing them he was the only person I knew who spoke on equal terms to anyone at any time in the worst circumstance.
Yeah.
And I hope that someone will hopefully respect that I don't care what goes on, but we have a right to be here.
Yeah.
I'm thankful to my mum, who never wavered from that fact, that used to write letters to kindergarten teachers.
Yeah.
We are humans. We are here before Cook.
Yeah.
We have a story, we have a culture, we have an identity, and we're equal. And I hope if there's anything anyone reminds them of is I'm fighting my best as I know to make sure that we're respected equally, and to get as much as I can back while I can, and do all I can while I'm on earth.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, brother. Oh, wow.
You all right, bro?
Yeah, good on you, brother.